Why does the United States now treat Greenland as a frontline military asset? Because geographically, Greenland sits on the shortest ballistic missile and bomber route between North America and Eurasia. Intercontinental missiles launched from northern Russia cross the Arctic in under 30 minutes, and Greenland lies directly under that arc. That makes it one of the most critical early warning locations on the planet. This is not a theoretical concern. Since 2022, US and NATO radar stations based around Greenland and the high north have recorded a steady rise in Russian long-range aviation activity. Tu-95 and Tu-160 nuclear-capable bombers routinely fly from the Kola Peninsula toward the Greenland-Iceland-UK corridor, forcing NATO fighters to scramble repeatedly. These missions are designed to map radar response times, interceptor routes, and command delays. At the same time, Russia has reactivated more than 50 Soviet-era Arctic facilities stretching from Franz Josef Land to Chukotka. Satellite imagery confirms upgraded runways, hardened shelters, S-400 air defense systems, and electronic warfare units capable of jamming satellite navigation and airborne sensors. The intent is clear: reduce U.S. visibility across the Arctic and challenge Greenland's role as an early warning shield. Below the surface, the threat is quieter but more dangerous. Roughly 95% of intercontinental digital traffic travels through undersea fiber optic cables. Several of the most critical transatlantic cables pass near Greenland. Russian intelligence vessels and research ships have been repeatedly observed operating near these cable routes, mapping seabed infrastructure. In a crisis, disabling even a small number of these cables could disrupt financial markets, military coordination, and civilian communications across North America and Europe within hours. China's involvement follows a different pattern. Beijing has declared the Arctic a strategic priority and formally integrated it into its Polar Silk Road initiative. Chinese state-linked companies have expressed interest in Greenlandic ports, airports, and rare earth mining projects. Greenland holds significant deposits of rare earth elements essential for fighter jets, missiles, radar systems, and electric vehicles. Control over these supply chains directly affects military production capacity. When military power is compared numerically, the imbalance is overwhelming. The United States defense budget has crossed $1.5 trillion annually when including base funding, overseas operations, and nuclear modernization. Denmark's defense budget, even with planned Arctic increases by 2026, remains close to $12 billion. The U.S. maintains approximately 1.4 million active-duty personnel. Denmark's entire armed forces, including Army, Navy, Air Force, and Arctic Command, total around 20,000 active troops. If the U.S. deployed only the 11th Airborne Division, roughly 12,000 soldiers, it would already exceed Denmark's total combat manpower available for Greenland. In the air domain, the U.S. Air Force and Navy operate more than 13,000 aircraft, including hundreds of F-35 and F-22 stealth fighters and long-range bombers. Denmark operates fewer than 50 modern combat aircraft. At sea, the United States fields 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, over 70 submarines, and dozens of destroyers. Denmark operates no submarines and relies primarily on a small number of frigates and patrol vessels. Greenland itself has no standing military. There is no Greenlandic Army, Navy, or Air Force. The only permanent presence is the Sirius Dog Sled Patrol, a unit of roughly a dozen personnel tasked with sovereignty patrols across vast, uninhabited areas. Their mission is monitoring and presence, not combat or territorial defense. In a hypothetical scenario, control of Greenland would begin before any visible troop movement. U.S. electronic warfare platforms and space-based assets would disrupt external communications, limiting coordination between Nuuk and Copenhagen. Air superiority would be established rapidly, using fighters operating from existing U.S. facilities and carrier groups positioned in the North Atlantic. The focus would immediately shift to Greenland's key airfields, including Kangerlussuaq and Narsarsuaq, the only runways capable of supporting heavy transport aircraft. Once secured, continuous airlift becomes possible, allowing personnel, vehicles, fuel, and construction equipment to arrive at scale. Greenland has no road network linking its settlements, making air and sea transport essential. Heavy main battle tanks are unsuitable for permafrost terrain, so lighter armored platforms and Arctic-adapted vehicles would dominate ground operations. Their role would be protection, deterrence, and infrastructure security rather than maneuver warfare. Naval forces would concentrate on controlling access routes. The Greenland-Iceland-UK gap remains one of the most important maritime choke points in the world. U.S. submarines would monitor underwater movement while surface fleets deter foreign naval presence. The objective would be exclusion, not engagement. Undersea cable landing points would receive continuous protection using unmanned underwater vehicles, sensors, and specialized dive teams. In modern conflict planning, safeguarding data flow is considered as vital as protecting airspace. As the footprint expands, engineering and logistics units would follow. Runways would be extended, radar arrays reinforced, and missile defense components integrated into a broader North American network. What begins as a limited deployment quickly becomes a permanent strategic hub. Within days, U.S. personnel numbers could rise from fewer than 200 to more than 10,000. Over time, that presence would be distributed across multiple upgraded Arctic sites, locking in long-term control. China's challenge in Greenland is access. Any large-scale movement must pass through Arctic routes monitored by NATO members and Russia. While Beijing's current strategy relies on civilian infrastructure and economic leverage, melting ice and expanding Arctic navigation could alter that balance over the next decade. The Arctic is no longer a frozen buffer zone. It is a contested operational theater where missiles, radar, satellites, cables, and logistics determine power. Greenland is no longer remote. It is central, and whoever controls it shapes the strategic balance of the Northern Hemisphere.